Simplicity, just tell people I'm fasting because I'm increasing my vibratory frequency. It makes perfect sense. The major thing about this fast, though, because of course there's a million different kind of fasts, and that's really what you see a lot with just a lot of the information. There's water fast. There's, just no eating. There's only supplements. There's clay fast. There's different kind of fast. So if we're asked about what kind of fast we're participating in, this is a whole body fast. This is an actual cleansing also. So it's fasting tends to involve not eating. We're also doing that. We're not going to eat a lot of the foods that people generally eat, or maybe that you don't eat, etc. But the thing is that we're participating in a form of a fast, but we're also adding another component, which is cleansing. And that's what the most important thing is, because you have to realize that the stages of this cleanse are actually gauged to deal with different organs in your body, so that way they can begin to play properly, and there becomes a harmony and a frequency that you actually make that becomes harmonic with the environment that you want to project yourself into. And that's how you actually fast forward through these different realities, is you just change your vibratory frequency, you change shape, then you become nonlinear, then you take this ship and you project it into where you want to go. I'm also going to talk about, as the days go on, we're going to do different things each day. Of course, today we're going to be about water because it's primary during the cleanse. You need to eat or drink, 6 to 8 glasses of water. But what we're going to also get into is we're going to get into frequency. And we're going to, on one day, we're going to get into breathing on another day. And each time you're going to see how we continuously accelerate. Obviously, people can tell the difference between me yesterday and today. And this is because not that I don't do fast, or I haven't done fast before, I haven't done cleansing before. Obviously, I have. But what happens is that with the wear and tear of this reality, because it's a little toxic, mentally, spiritually, physically, the environment at times pushes stuff at us that toxifies our systems. So what happens is at times you'll hit this height, and then as you're working in the capacity of being on that height, you'll be also engaging in other lower frequency things, or engaging other lower frequency things, and it starts to bring the overall frequency of your vehicles down. So this is called descension, or descending the ladder. It actually is a process that you would need to learn how to do anyway if you're distributing the gifts that you're getting from your higher states of consciousness. But at the same time, you must learn how to climb the ladder again. So what I've actually done, and it's all, to me, even with the time zone change yesterday, very relevant, but I've actually gotten to a point where I could say I've climbed down the ladder completely, meaning that from the many different rings that I have, as far as how many times I've gone around cycles or expanded into cycles, etc., I would say that I can always tell when I'm at that climax or peak point and I'm about to go dive in again, or if I'm in the lower position, ready to raise up into a higher frequency than ever. And I can also tell that with my body, because sometimes when you get really toxic, but your body is still trying to push through and still conducting, then you know that if I clean this thing up, it'll really push. So I would say that I've definitely been about 3 or 4 months without a cleanse. And so that's put me in a position to say, well, I definitely could use one. But also through this last 3 months, I've been feeling a very high level of energy coming from the cosmos, or wherever you want to say it's coming from. And so that only means more, meaning that once this cleanse is complete for everyone, there's going to be a quickening, meaning that your connection with everything won't have as much mucoid plaque and pus and things in between your connection between you and it. So, or connection with you and self. So let me take a look here. I guess we'll go ahead and get right into, I do have my notes behind here, so if you want to know, well, what is he looking at? My notes are in the back now. Obviously, I can take the entire living room and turn it into a studio. I'm not sure how the wife will feel about that, but let's see, 3 to 5 days adjustment to this. Okay, so we're going to now do this water demo because it's so important, and some people will be able to just take this part of the video and clip it out, and then just take it to YouTube and say, what's going on with the water, because this is important. Because water, of course, none of us would be here on land at all without fresh water, okay? We have a salt or a saline inside of our body, and we have even things that generate saline and extract saline, etc. So it's important to understand there's this whole salt component to the body. The body makes its own salt. Now, tears are a form of your own salt, and that, according to how your diet is and things like that, is become very, very high quality. Even your sweat, your essence, etc., all your excretions or your secretions, the secrets, can basically give off the frequency that they correspond to. So Of course, with the water, it's a major thing. Something was brought up in the video that I was just recently looking at, and it was saying that eventually, some point, we would run out of fresh water. Yes, especially at our current use and our current abuse. And we would eventually have to go to the ocean and pull out the water out of there and start removing the salt and start drinking that. And so it brought up some interesting insights about how we could do that and, how we can even prevent that. And one of the ways that I would really say to people is that to understand just the value of water and how much water can do for you with just a glass. Like everything has an energy reservation to it. So you can actually, in putting more intention into the water and also being able to be clear when you're drinking it, allow it to hydrate you a lot better. So before I even get into the more technical side, I still want to tell people that there are people that have enough mental power to change the structure of water. Okay, they don't need these devices and things to do that. But for those of us that don't, which make up now millions, if not billions of people who don't, then there are other methods in order to make sure you're dealing with very clear water. Now, the first tool that we have to acquire would be a digital water tester. It's only $15 in itself. I even like to carry it around. Maybe I'll just get one day like a utility belt and I'll have all this stuff so I can just test things on the fly. But it's that important that what kind of water you drink actually governs the fuel cleaning system. It's just, in a sense, the car has this water in the radiator or this antifreeze in the radiator. So what you need to make sure is that you always have real water to flush out and to detoxify. Your body needs that. Why? Because what happens is when you give it water mixed with something else, and now today you'll see what else the water is mixed with, but when you give it water mixed with something else, it would be basically like me trying to clean this floor with chlorophyll. Even though chlorophyll is good for you, you need chlorophyll as far as you could put it in the water. It's not pure water, and we talked about this yesterday. So in certain instances, if you're trying to use it to just clean, then it's not going to work out right because it's already basically mixed with something else. So your body needs water that's not mixed with anything. And the only way to determine that is to, again, get one of these testers because it allows you to see the parts per million. So today what we're going to do is we're going to test the parts per million of tap water, distilled water, and purified water. And then what I may do in this other glass is actually take the residue, which is accumulated within this, mix it with about a cup of water, and then test it again and actually see, how active those minerals really are, if they increase or decrease, because it's something that I even want to know. So right off the bat, obviously, we're dealing with water distiller. This is an excellent thing. It's one of the great inventions of the world overlooked, given to mankind to make sure that he actually stays completely purified as far as on a water level, and that's this distilled water maker. And I'm probably going to spill a little water here, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. And of course, it takes about 2 to 3 hours to distill this much water. This is one of the bigger containers. And also, let me just get that going here. Excuse me. Yeah, so it takes about 2 or 3 hours to get about that much distilled water out. But what happens is you get water in the kitty, we call it. So what happens is you can make this thing work. It can do 150 gallons, no problem, nonstop. One guy had it doing that for 7 years because he owned a fish store. So you can imagine these are really industrial machines, and they can crank out a lot. So you'll get your money back because obviously a bottle of distilled water in a gallon is about $1.89, something like that. But you always want to make sure that if you can, you distill it so you can see all the processes that it goes through. Like, it's so important for you to see it and to be able to know what's happening with it. So that way you can also absorb exactly what's going on. Just within this experiment alone, I was able to really tap deeply into why certain things are not working properly with myself. Why this water is what you put in a battery, a car battery. So you can't put tap water in a car battery. Why? Because it does not conduct. You need salt to be able to make something like tap water conduct. So you also need to see salt as a bridge. And tomorrow is actually about salt. So again, you have your distilled water. We're going to take some tap water. And let me go over here and get some tap water. Also, the thing is that now my tap water here is going to be a little bit more cleaner, even though it's going to spit out alarming numbers. And it's because this is well water, and there's no chemicals or anything supposedly around here. So let Okay, let's go ahead and get some of this purified water. We just got your standard brand Alpina. And also what I'm going to show you is how parts per million, because some people that know about, being able to test water, which is quite a few people, they'll always say, well, yeah, but you'll get a higher parts per million anytime you add any additive to a water, so it doesn't mean that additive is bad. So that's true, because in many senses, you can add minerals to water, or you can have artesian mineral water, and it has very great minerals in it, and the parts per million will be a little high because it's got a lot of good minerals in it. But the real thing that we have to realize now is that how do you know that you're getting this artesian pure mineral water, or you're getting water with minerals added to it? The best thing to do is to completely clean water and then add your own minerals to it. So that's the way that you really want to handle that. The other thing I want to talk about during this fast is also clothing and ambience. And this is somewhat of a sidebar why I kind of get our ambience going here. But clothing in the sense where you got to make sure that you have some loose clothes on if you can during the fast. That way your body is free flowing and moving. In addition to that, you always want to make sure that there's something to more or less keep you calm in a sense, like meaning chakra bowls and different kind of sounds that will help you stay relaxed. And that is, of course, because the more relaxed you are, the more the toxins move. Now, if you need some pointers on where to get some very good music just all the way around, even in FLAC, Pirate Bay, hey, everyone's doing it today. All you got to do is Google the keyword chakra bowl torrent, and you'll come into the mother lode of all the chakra bowls, which is the best you can get. There's even a torrent that's chakra bowls in FLAC, which is, of course, lossless, meaning that the devices that they're recording on, when they're recorded, there is no loss between the actual sound of when the recording took place and now, even though it went to inorganic, but we won't get into that right now. Leave that for something like Dan Winter. So let's go ahead and give this water a test then. I think it would be excellent to start off first, because if I start with the distilled water, it's going to test low numbers. So everyone's going to ask, is this thing even working? Of course, I'm going to have to hold this up to the camera once I'm done testing. But let's go ahead and test the tap water first. So how this works, we just let the needle inside dip into the water, and then we let the number stabilize. And then once the number stabilizes, we press hold. Okay, and we get that beep. And so now I'm going to bring this to the camera so everyone can see it, but it says 213 parts per million. And, okay, yeah, 213, you see that. Okay, so that, when you look on the back, because there's also a chart here, it tells you it's the average tap water, okay? Now let's go ahead and turn this off. Let's go ahead and clean it off. And let's go ahead and give the bottled water a shot. So this is why, again, you will see that drinking certain waters are still better than drinking other waters. And then you also see ultimately the best water to drink. So here we go with the purified water. Okay. I'm going to hit hold. Okay, and the purified water comes back at exactly 70. Okay, so 70 parts per million. Okay? Let's go ahead and turn this thing off. And cut it back on one more time for the distilled water. And the distilled water, and it goes in. 10, 9, 8. There we go. Sometimes I can get this to test out at 1. And it actually did go to 1 for a brief second, but then it went back to 0. It's like nothing. And then, what the people who were trying to discredit distilled water were like, yeah, because distilled water is unstructured water. If distilled water is unstructured water, then what's coming out of the tap is extremely unstructured then. Here we are, 0. Okay? So it's one of those things about your life. So when you think about, whether you really need something like that to start off, because once your body cycles all of the water out that's inside of it and gets this pure water inside of it, then it can start doing major things. And so you have to also see that what's going on in our reality is connected in a major way to what's going on in our water. So what's in the tap water actually, and we're going to take a look at that in a moment. But before we do that, I'm going to take this distilled water and I'm going to add some alkaline also, just to show you. We add 2 drops of alkaline to show you that the parts per million will increase, because this has, of course, potassium in it. It has some selenium in it, some magnesium in it. So, and there's also, from this particular alkazone, they have a mineral one that just adds minerals to the water. And so it's basically you treating your own water so you know exactly what you're getting. Also, you can place the intentions in this water because you're also very clear that this water is clear. See, people need to realize that there's a part of this that connects where you're talking about what's invisible to what's invisible. There's a spectrum in there, a bridge in there that connects everything. So we have to look at, there's a lot about, we need to see the confirmation that, okay, this is clear, to actually be able to project. Who knows? One day I may be able to project so much into some water that we tested at 0 parts per million, and then after the mental projection, it comes back at some particles or something. Who knows? But again, now I wanted to let this soak for a moment. And while we're doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about breakfast this morning, because, and again, people that are day 5, it's not going to be necessarily the yummy, chewy foods. So, but then again, this may make some individuals salivate too, especially those that are already on the great diets. But what I have here is just this is actually some warrior protein, this is some warrior ormis, some acai, some spirulina, and some maca. There's some bananas here, and I actually have some juice in the refrigerator from the juicer that's basically just pineapple juice. It's important that you can really understand and really back down your meal and to get what you need to get in your body. You can utilize for breakfast, I'm coming off the camera here, but we'll just talk about what's going on for breakfast now. You can utilize something like quinoa in a smoothie. That's the best breakfast that you could really get in your system, because especially if you have to go and train or something and work out or meditate and do some yoga, obviously you don't need to have a full stomach. So realize that you can get one of these shakes in your system, or even after, because sometimes it depends on what you're doing. If you get up early in the morning and you're going to meditation, it's better to meditate with nothing on your stomach at all. But if you're going to go and work out, it's good to put a super grain in your body like quinoa and then a smoothie, but not necessarily jump into the full-blown breakfast. So just remember that. And let's see here. I'm going to also, excuse me, from time to time check the chat box, because of course we do have a live chat going on. And if you do have questions, you can actually ask them in the chat box, but it looks like everyone's just watching the show and entertained by that. So let me look at my notes here, because I always want to make sure that I do cover everything. Just remember, when we're going through this cleanse, as you're decreasing your diet to 50%, there's something that you do that you should not do, and that's, oh my goodness, I'm going to eat everything that I can now, so that after the fast, I don't never have to eat this stuff anymore. This is, again, I've been on a lot of fasts, so I've seen every single dynamic, not only within myself, but within others. Generally, if they know that a fast is about to come, they'll eat like crazy, because they'll know that possibly after the fast, which is something like a New Year's resolution to them, that they won't eat any more of that. So that's why they need it more. So here's what I wanted to tell you, and it was in case it's in the video I dropped in the chat room this morning. But you have to see the body, especially when it's not tame, when it's all unharmonic, because it hasn't been, encouraged to put the right things inside of it to get it to shape itself up, literally shape up. What happens is you build up a lot of excess fat, toxins, etc. If you look at generally, anytime they show you the actual diagram of the human being, it's always really shown with no fat. And this is not saying that people should not have fat, but what I'm telling you is that there is a trimmed down version of the human that takes place as you go into higher vibratory frequencies anyway, because higher vibratory frequency is like heat. And what happens is the person keeps up this large amount of heat, and a lot of the fat or excess burns off. See, there's a hidden mystery within the fat of the earth, even when that was called by that term, which was, it was the excess of even what is almost like shown to us at times as being the surplus. And so we have to see that when you're cruising through this galaxy, you want to be as sleek as possible. Also, if you're having hereditary issues, especially with the thyroid, you want to look into biochemical cell salts. I have a couple people that have told me that they've had miraculous results because of that, and it really helps them bring the weight back down. So what you're really looking at is that when you're bringing up this higher vibratory frequency, you're going to be a lot more trimmed down with everything. And this is going to serve to allow you to move into spaces that you want to get into very fast. There's not going to be like this whole blob of you coming and trying to fit into a situation. It's very sleek, very light, and able to enter and exit situations. That's the other thing. With manifestation, what you'll find is after something grand is manifested, you'll now be moving on to your next manifestation as long as you don't get stuck on that ladder. Always remember that all your manifestations are built to further you in understanding how to manifest even greater things. So sometimes if you manifest something, you may be guilty of staying in that manifestation too long and not continuing to project for your next manifestation, which takes more energy. And so this is why it's one of those things where when you truly look at what cleansing the body is, it's you remembering to take your body into like you take in your car into the service station, to lay out your body like a surgeon and say, okay, give me a list of intake. And then so you're sitting down there and you're actually acting out all of the different scenarios that actually occur in the physical world, because the physical world is only a replication of the spiritual world. It is indeed a replica. So what happens is that when you begin to assess, well, what am I taking in? What's my water looking like? What is the most important things that you need? One, breath. See, you can time what are the most important things that you need based on how fast you will be completely depleted if you don't get them. Like if the time transpires for a certain moment without breath, then it's a wrap. But you can live longer without water than you can without breath. You see what I mean? So the first thing to look at is your breath, and we're going to be getting into that in a few days. The second thing, again, is to look at is your actual water, because you can't go that long without water. You can go longer without food than you can without water. You see? So these are actually the dependencies of the body, and the reason why I wanted to bring up the body today is because if it's unharmonic, its dependencies actually lead to hysteria. Can lead a person to driving into a psychosis. Here's why. There are worms inside of the body, such as the candida, that some people are on day 5. They're experiencing this mental hunger where the mind says, hey, what is going on? I'm supposed to be eating this. And then it's trying to tell the stomach that, and the stomach's like, well, shoot, I got a bunch of psyllium in me. So realistically, I'm not really hungry. In fact, I haven't. There's a lot of stuff that I just need to get out of here. So what's really happening is there's something else, a frequency, sending a signal that says, I'm hungry. Now, the reason why you know this is possible is because babies even do this. Babies will tell the mother, I'm hungry. And that's the first thing that they understand how to do, right? So that's called primal instinct. So most of these worms have a primal instinct to say, where's my mucoid plaque? Where's my high fructose corn syrup? Because I need this to thrive and survive. So remember, there are entities, then frequencies inside of your body that are attempting to establish themselves based on the frequency that they thrive in, and they would love to make the entire body their frequency. And this is why you got this good bacteria and bad bacteria, as they call it, and that this pH balance and all this stuff has to be in line, as if you're like this king or queen over the throne of your body, sitting inside of maybe the high point at sometimes on the throne, but also taking the time to go throughout all the villages and countries and towns throughout the body, distributing the goods of what has been gained from higher kingdoms. So the entire body, again, is the microcosmic universe in itself. And it's still in a state, though, where the universe is saying, look, I am here, engage. Just like most of the stuff that's on the planet still, if we're not finding our time and wasting our time with being engaged most of the time with something foolish, the planet is saying to us, engage. Whatever you want, I can really get you. I've already put you inside of, this is, of course, the spaceship, but I've also given you all of these things, meaning that you didn't leave yourself stranded. And I've also given you all these other things like these plants, these monatomics, these elements, these distillations, these, constellations. I mean, what more human do you want? And so this is why also in closing out today's session, I was saying that what's going to happen during this cleanse is I'm going to actually redefine everything. I'm going to redefine how I see everything and also the things that I'm mainly involved in. I'm going to take the personal time to go over them. And one thing, especially with the resistance, I want to redefine is I want us to begin to fully assist others in bringing out their creative ideas to improve this reality. Now, these ideas, of course, have to be realistic, meaning in many cases, we have enough knowledge to know what will and will not work. Sometimes when I look at individuals' plans and they have not considered any spiritual component in those plans, I automatically make those plans in my mind null because I understand there is a mental, physical, and spiritual component to any plan. If you're lacking one of those points, then it's only going to hinder the plan. And so I see these great people, like I was looking at this video this morning with this Justin Hall on TED Talks. He was talking about the free energy from the grid. And it was amazing stuff in which they were talking about. And they were on the nano level with it, meaning they were actually seeing things the way that they really appear. If you're going to look into something, you have to go all the way down to the nano. And if you're going to go out and look at something, you have to go all into the light spectrums, etc. So I started to wonder if he was still aware that what he was developing and his partners and his friends were developing, once they finally got to all the red tape clear, would still find the Jesuits back there saying, well, we own all the oil, so this device can only be used maybe in Germany. You see, I started to realize that how they're setting up the entire world is like you see in London, there's a very high education curriculum. So you have in London a high education curriculum. All the children that are in London get this installation of software that they give them. And then in countries like Costa Rica, of course, especially the public schools are, they're teaching them still stuff from 1980s. They're getting books from the United States and trying to learn off of those from, 15, 20 years ago from grants. So what I'm saying is that it always makes sure then that one group of individuals that bear a certain creeding and say, this is my mother, behaves a certain way. You see what I mean? And act a certain way. And that way will not lead to universalness. Meaning that generally when you raise someone and you raise them separate from the idea that all is self, then that individual, unless correcting that, goes throughout the rest of their life seeing themselves in separation, never understanding how everything is actually connected. And as I said before, and I'll close out today's conversation, in the entire concept of the most highest spiritual aspirations, you'll find that they say that we are all one, or we're all connected, we're all together, etc., etc. So what I want to tell people is that if that is the case, which I believe to be true, that means that it would be within an arm's throw, most of the things. Meaning that all of these lofty entities and all this stuff that we've invented with our mind that's actually becoming the biggest hindrance to our planet, us putting our aspirations into invisible gods and things like that, that is going to lead to only a certain level of our progress. We now have to take upon ourselves the true stance of where we are here on this planet and who we are and what we've done to raise this planet into a higher vibratory frequency through our act of doing so. Meaning that there is this heavy level of us actually walking the path that we're talking to others about, that it's possible and that it can be done. And this has everything to do with cleansing. But what I'm actually talking about also is human orgone. I'm talking about when you're able to build up a certain level of energy and a certain level of aspirations, etc., and then that begins to radiate out to everything that's around you. Okay, this is the next key to our emancipation, and it's a proper emancipation and birth. Because what's actually happening is that we're coming out of this egg, and the celestial bodies, the lights, etc., we're becoming more susceptible to that, the influence. So the first thing that we're going to need to see first is that everyone contains the whole. So that way, when new phenomena begins, because there will be new phenomena, that once again, like what happened in history, all of the energy is not directed to one person that in turn does not distribute that energy to everyone else. And this is what is known as a pyramid system, monotheism or moon theism. But it's important for people to see that it's a collective thing. We all work in different stations, just like your body. The first thing to do is the inner stand. So you get your body together, and then that will project that and begin to project that in the environment. And then once things that may not be in that shape see that shape, they remember and they recall, oh, that's my perfected shape. That's my perfected form. That's how DNA works. DNA gobbles the information that's around it. It's pulling it from the auric field, it's pulling it from off of others' auric fields, etc. So it's gathering this information. And when it sees the perfected information of the rays and the essence that is coming off of you, then it actually mixes that in, and then the DNA begins to correct itself. So remember, what we're doing here on this planet has a heavy level of organic nature to it. Meaning that this is not about just being on the internet. And that's the other warning that I wanted to give people today about when you're going through, especially latter parts of this cleanse, because obviously we have to do the other internal cleanse. There's a lot that I'm going to be doing because I'll still be carrying on the program, but I'm going to be doing it out there, which is why I got the Hero Cam. And I'm going to continue to uplift, but I'm also going to make sure that I don't hinder myself by putting myself in environments where I can't uplift for too long. You see what I mean? So this is about having balance, and every day you must make a sober estimate of yourself and make sure the balance is actually correct. So the last thing, I guess, to finish this off, because I said I was going to do, we're going to test this and check out the parts per million on distilled water. And also, yeah, I actually have to show you what's inside this container. I don't want to forget. I get a little excited sometimes. So now, with the alkaline added, it's at 10 parts per million. Okay? So that's still much lower than the Alpina, but in this tint, it's not about lower or higher. You could even add colloidals to this and it'll keep increasing it, but you know what's actually being added to it. So let me go ahead and let you see the byproduct of what's inside of the distiller. And this is one distillation. Generally, what I did last night is I cleaned this thing up. Let me bring it around. I cleaned it up and let me tilt this camera here. And then I distilled that one batch that you're seeing there for this morning. And I'm not sure how well you can see that, but you'll see there's basically crud in the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix this a little bit with water, and I'm going to pour it back out in that glass so you can see it even better. But basically, there's thick crud in the bottom. And remember, this is the well water, so this is not generally as bad as what you're getting in the city. So hold on, I'm going to mix it with some water real quick here so that you can see what it looks like. Let me. Got to clean it, move it around a little bit in there. Just use a simple paper towel. So yeah, the fasting and the cleanse thing is huge. And honestly, to me, there's nothing else in this world better than getting into the higher vibratory frequency and getting more harmonic, and then being able to assist others in helping others get there. Because obviously, if we keep allowing the world to be run like it's run now, there'll be no world here that'll be on this level. It'll still be a world, but it'll be run in a totally different way. And it's just really ridiculous because some of the things that we've actually discovered, especially at this point, mentally, physically, spiritually, I mean, things that we've discovered about our physicality, our flesh, and all of what it can and cannot do, its limitations, etc., how to accelerate it. Our minds, how much we can learn and how much we can expand and how much we've learned and expanded already. And, you know, in our souls, our destination, our origins, you know, there's a lot in the myth, the lore of the etymology, etc. So why, let me empty this completely, why give all of that up because someone got stuck on a level of the ladder? Meaning that in regards to the black nobility, as they call themselves, the company, the order, you have to realize with these individuals, the dominion is also named the Diaboli Intrepidi, code name Illuminati. Sometime that's not even the real guys. But you got to realize that these individuals are promoting the prophecies because it's for profit. The Christ myth, which is just the story of one raising themselves up the ladder or climbing the spine, they're utilizing that and playing on people's emotions and feelings and creating these religions that disempower people. And then thus our system looks like this. And let me focus in a little bit more on this. Just from what I showed you with distilled water, there should be no way, and remember, this is not just this country, this is the best water that you can get. And this is what I was telling you about, and I'll switch these just for the camera point of view, but this is what I was telling you about yesterday with if we're drinking this, even like once the water finally gets in our body and then, our body breaks down the water part of it the best it can, all of that, what's still in here is now in our body. And so what happens is that this is going to go into all the glands, all the organs, the teeth, everything. And basically, there's probably fluoride in here, etc. And what's going to happen is that you're going to end up in a state of deactivation. So when someone tells you it's in the water, which is one of the first videos that we ever did, they're not lying. So let's test this out. And of course, because this is more concentrated, but I get the answer to my question about, and once your body distills this, basically, let me let that sit. It's jumping around everywhere. It just doesn't even know how to take it. It's like, I don't know what this is. Okay, let's go ahead and hold it there because it seems to be jumping between 380 and 419. Let me see if you can, let me back that camera up a little bit. Okay, 419. So there you have it. What we're drinking is going to affect our consciousness. Water is the second level of our second level of importance. You got to keep it clean if you're going to be running a premium human. So that's it today. And let me go ahead and check to the chat box and see what everyone's saying and see if anyone has any questions. Also, if you have some questions about some stuff, this is time. Okay, it looks like that everyone has their questions answered. Let me go ahead and check within the chat box of the show itself. Also, we will be... what we'll do is we'll actually come in probably tonight. Like, if not, I'll send some information out to everyone. That's why it's important for you to add yourself to Skype, because I really do have to put quite a bit of time in putting this entire network together in the living room. That way I can start sourcing videos and stuff while we're talking. I also got to get things set up even outside, so that way there's like a bed or something. Obviously, there's a little futon or something like that. We can do these chakra meditations, etc. And so we're going to, as this continues, we'll be showing you more and more things of how to raise the frequency. So that way, even if you have to drink this for whatever reason, we even kick in with some things to let you know how to clean yourself up or clean this stuff up. And this is, of course, we're going to have to take this water through an actual process of something like MMS and then be able to send it through some other things. There's also small versions of distillers. I didn't even check where the camera was. But there's also smaller versions of distillers, so that becomes very important because you don't have to actually have this huge one. And I think the cheapest one probably you can get down to $69, $79. Just check Amazon because they rate them and they show you if they work or not. And then people always put their ppm there, so it's an important thing. Take care of yourself. And let me look here in the box. Okay, also I do want to let everyone know, one thing I want to let everyone know about the adjustment. Sometimes when you put distilled water into the system, it actually, it may take the body 3 to 5 days to adjust. And some of the side effects generally are, well, you just feel a little strange. I'll just tell you that. So if you do feel a little strange because you just started incorporating distilled water, stick with it generally, and it's going to go away about 5 days. And that's because the body is so used to getting this kind of water. Then when it gets this kind of water, it's like confused. It's like, wait a minute, This isn't water. You see what I mean? So it's just like almost if you feed a child candy, then you give them a piece of broccoli, they're going to be like, no. So you have to also see the body also as like a child, especially if it hasn't been instructed yet. I wanted to say wholeness and balance vibration to everyone. Thank you for tuning in. You'll get the notifications of us tuning in tonight, and take the information, apply it, do your best to assist others, especially in bringing their creative energy and ideas into this reality so that we can boost our planet to where it actually can really be, which is beyond any limits. Wholeness.